The Sentinel is known to be reliable, fearless, disciplined, consistent, courageous, motivated, and skillful.
So do what you feel passionate about. Take chances.
All these qualities start from the mind. Your mind can be your worst enemy or your most powerful weapon.
The world becomes your library to help you to become better at your craft.
Is this the dagger?
Learn how to achieve greatness and tap into the Sentinel mindset.
Go! This is unbelievable.
Muhammad Lila knew from an early age he had a gift in his possession, a gift to tell stories. When he decided to turn his 7th grade science project into a narrative, it caught his teacher's attention. It was a bold move that still landed him an A.
Hear the gunfire coming from that direction.
Later, becoming a top journalist specializing in war zone coverage, he developed a body of work even the late Peter Jennings may envy.
What makes you so happy?
ABC's Mohammed Lila reporting on the crisis in Egypt.
In a twist of events, everything nearly came to a screeching halt when his life verged on ending 3 times.
We're flying at 1,000 feet above the ground right now.
Now he's on a mission to tell stories on an all-new platform. This time, it's his own.
And hopefully at the end of this, you'll feel as though you went along on this journey with us. And if that's what you do feel, then we've done our jobs.
Ladies and gentlemen, Muhammad Lila.
How do you guys start? Are we on now?
Well, actually, we're going right now, and actually,
okay, cool.
We're gonna dive in.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Before we get into the amazing guest we have on board, I'm actually looking at him right now. There's this picture of you off a helicopter.
Oh,
with,
yeah.
With a Sony camcorder.
Yeah.
It looks like you're somewhere in the Middle East.
Yeah.
And shades that put mine to
shades.
shame.
You look like James Bond right now. We're talking about right now the one and only Muhammad Lila from CBC, ABC to CNN. This man has done his rounds, and he has an incredible story, and we're just so happy that you're here with us today, man.
I'm thrilled to be here, guys. Look, I'm a fan of what you guys are doing. I watch your stuff online, and there's an energy here that you guys have that's just incredible. And so, Constantine, when you were like, hey, do you want to be on our show? Like, I was like, yeah. It could be like minus 20 degrees outside and a blizzard, and I'd still be here.
That's awesome.
And we've had minus 20 shows with there's been shows where snow is going literally sideways behind the guest.
No, man, I think you guys are onto something, and I'm excited to be here because I feel like I can be here when you guys are in this growth phase, you know? Everybody wants to go on like Joe Rogan because he's like the podcast king or whatever, right?
Never heard of him.
Never? No, but I just like being around people who have that energy, you know? And, it's just chill. And I think you guys have that. Like, you guys are masters at that. So I'm happy to be here.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the word energy and all that because...
And chill. I mean, like, look how chill he is.
Yeah, he's just so chill, man.
Because you guys are
hanging out a helicopter.
Yeah. So first of all, the sunglasses aren't fashion.
Yeah.
You have to wear, they call them ballistic eyewear.
Right.
Right, and I actually learned this very, very early on. That was my first ever time I embedded with the U.S. military, and a lot of their guys wear they look like visors or they look like really nerdy plastic glasses, right? But they're actually because in case there's an explosion, sometimes it's not the force of the explosion that'll kill you; it's the shrapnel, right? And so you wear those because it protects your eyes. So those sunglasses in the picture are actually bulletproof sunglasses.
Wow.
Crazy.
It's to protect your eye.
Yeah. Function over fashion.
Yeah.
Minor prescription.
No, I mean, if you're going to do it, look good.
Minor prescription. That's why I have these.
But things, if you're going to do it, look good, right?
Oh, for sure.
Exactly. They
do
look really good.
Look nice.
Now, the funny thing is to me is that when I met you, which was probably back in 2010, okay? I met you were at a function, and this is when you were with CBC. Okay. Yeah. And obviously, you know, one's getting to know you and seeing what you do and the stories that you cover. In fact, remember one of the main stories you were covering was this fax machine that basically covers, like once you, the printer. Once you print something, it takes all the information and it keeps it.
We won an award for that. That was a good story. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so what does it do?
So once you print, actually, you'd say
Actually, most people don't know this, right? So let's say you go to like, I don't know, do they still have Kinko's?
I don't know.
Or like a FedEx Express, whatever. Like
yeah, those still exist.
You go to one of those stores, right? Or like a library, and you use their photocopier. So photocopiers aren't like when we were growing up. It makes a copy and it gives it to you, right? these new models, they all store whatever you copy in a hard drive, right? And so like whoever the maker is, like Xerox or whatever, they can access that. Now, so what we found was people had photocopiers in public places, and then you'd sell it because it was 3 years old, 4 years old, whatever, and you'd go on eBay or Kijiji and you'd be able to buy these old photocopiers. So you could go and buy an old photocopier, access the hard drive of every single thing that had been copied.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
so like you copy your income taxes.
Yes, it's
There.
And you didn't even think, oh, I went to like a Staples or something like 5 years ago.
Yes, everything from budgets to butt cheeks. You never know what you're going to see there.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I mean?
You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I never thought about that, but it's true, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here you are doing these stories that are pretty much, just general news, interesting stories.
Yeah.
And then you're on a plane with bullets literally in the area flying. I mean, let's go there. How did you first of all make that transition from that to the danger zone? Like, would that be considered like a pure war zone?
Yeah,
I guess?
we call them hostile environments, but they're basically war
Scarborough.
zones.
I grew up in Scarborough.
No, man. So I spent a lot of time in quote unquote bad neighborhoods of Toronto, and they're filled with good people,
Yes.
right? And then I spend a lot of time overseas in quote unquote bad places, and they're still filled with good people.
Amazing.
There's good people everywhere. I think a few bad apples kind of ruin it for everybody.
For sure.
But I always knew growing up that I was a storyteller. I knew that from when I was in grade 7 and I was taking science, and we had to do a diagram of amoebas, which are like those single cell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wrote a story instead.
Okay.
I was like, I'm just bored. I'm just going to write a story. And I got an A. I got an A because the teacher came back and he goes, you know what? You're doing something that science needs more of.
Yes.
We need more people who can connect science with ordinary people.
Right.
Right? We don't need diagrams of amoebas. And I always knew I was a storyteller. I just never thought anybody would be crazy enough to put me on TV. Like when we met, I probably had short hair, but when I started at City TV, I had long hair. I had a beard. I'm a brown guy named Muhammad, right? And I was like, there's no way anybody's going to put a brown guy named Muhammad on TV, right? And I looked like a hippie at the time. And City TV took a risk, and they called me in, and they're like, there's a whole story behind it, right? But basically they said, look, we develop a lot of talent here, and we think you're the next thing. And I didn't screw up. I mean, I wasn't good, but I didn't screw up. And I learned very early on that my boss that hired me, who was a controversial guy, turns out, but he really taught me a lot. And he said, Mohammed, as long as you keep growing, you'll always have a job here. And I just took that to heart. So no matter what I'm doing, no matter where I've been, from City to CBC to ABC, I'm always trying to push the envelope. What can I learn? How many other stories can I watch and learn what they're doing and apply it to me, right? It's like if you're an athlete, right? Kobe Bryant misses a game-winning shot. He's going to stay in the gym for 4 hours after that game, and he's going to keep shooting that shot over and over again so that the next time he doesn't miss. So everybody has the equivalent of that in their life, right? Like you could be an artist and maybe your painting didn't sell and you're trying to figure out why. So the next time, if you want to be a master, you got to make sure every single stroke on that painting is exactly the way that you want it to be, right? Or if you're cutting deals, why weren't you able to close that deal? Is it the way that you sat in the boardroom? Is it the clothes you were wearing? Is it the voice that you were projecting? What was it? And if you want to be the best at what you do, you're always analyzing, right? You're always going back and saying, what did I do wrong? How could I have made this better? And even those stories, right? Like even the story we were talking about the photocopiers, that won an award for best investigative journalism. But I'm not happy with it because I'll look back on it and I'll say, oh, I could have done this. I could have done that. Here's what I could have done. And I think it's just that thing that you have inside you where if you want to be the best at what you do, you've got to keep working at it. And that's, I think, how I was able to shape my career. And I still have a long way to go.
How old were you when you were at City?
Oh, I started young, man. I was anchoring on CP24 when I think I was 24 or 25 years old.
Wow, okay.
Yeah,
that's
I was
really
really
young.
young. I was really young.
Wow.
And I was one of the youngest I think they had, but I just want to learn as much as I can, you know? So I would sit with like the legends of Toronto, right? I would sit with Gord Martineau. I would sit with Anne Romer. Anne Romer took me under her wing and like just showed me the ropes and stuff. I would even sit with Francis and Morella, like they would watch my stuff. And we're more like colleagues now, right? But that kind of sort of same career step, but they would just watch my stuff and they'd say, try saying it this way. Here's what you got to do when you like throw to commercial break, right? I did a live shot once where I spoke to somebody who was at a vigil, and this was very early on. And I thought when you're on TV and you throw back to the anchor, you're supposed to smile. Because you just like you see it, right? Like, you know, you're watching the NBA,
right? And
you're like, I'm with DeMar DeRozan. DeMar, how's the game? What could you have done better? All right, back to you guys.
Yeah,
right.
But that does happen.
So, and to me, I was like, that's what you're supposed to do,
right?
But not when you're at a vigil when somebody just got shot.
Yes,
and I didn't clue in, right?
Yeah.
So I had a lot of people show me this stuff, and you just learn from people, man, and then you make it your own.
I love what you talked about growth, that commitment to growth.
Yeah.
What would your colleagues, your mentors, when you first started out at 24, what would they have said about you then? What would be accurate statements about you coming in?
So I'll tell you what they did tell me. They said, Mohammed, you got to cut your hair.
How long was it exactly? I'm trying to picture this right now.
Yeah.
Oh, I can send you a picture. You know what? If you put this on YouTube, I'll send you a picture. You can put it up, right? But it was down to my shoulders.
Really?
Wow.
Was it in a ponytail, or was it like, like
No, I never
spiritual?
had. I never had. I didn't have the texture to be able to put it back in a ponytail. It was just because it was like really kind of not curly,
right?
So it would just kind of fly all.
Okay.
But City did me a favor, right? Because I was pushing hard to be able to file stories during the main newscast during the week, and they wouldn't let me. And finally, he calls me in and he goes, "Okay, you can start filing for City News at 6, but you got to cut your hair." Mm-hmm. And initially, I was like, "What the hell? This is City TV, man. You're supposed to just let people be who they want to be."
Yeah. Love me for me.
And they had all sorts of people, right? Like those are the golden days, man. Where like you had guys like Jojo Chinto and Mark Daly and those guys, and they were just characters, right? And I was like, they told me to cut my hair. Why do I have to cut my hair? But in the end, it was the right decision because it was distracting.
Yeah,
and it didn't look good.
That's why I cut mine. Anything else they said about you? What would they say about you? So they said, cut your hair.
I think that's a really good question, man. I think they would have said I'm quiet, and I think I still am. Like, some organizations, somebody walks into the room and they walked in, right? It's the loudest guy in the room, the guy who expresses their opinions. I'm not that guy. I'm the guy that'll sit at the back of the class and just survey. I'm not going to put my hand up to answer every question. I'm not going to be the teacher's pet. I'm not going to be the first one down to hand in an assignment or whatever. I just sit at the back and I'll survey. And the thing is, when you're surveying, you're learning. Your mind's always going, right? So you sit in the newsroom and you're like, okay, that guy took 4 hours to do his story and this person took 2. What's going on here, right? Or you walk into like the voiceover booth, right? And I had to work a lot on my voice. And like Mark Daly would go into the voiceover booth and be out in 30 seconds. Like the guy was a legend, right? And he could do it and it was so natural for him and it was just him. And then I'd go in and I'd spend 10 minutes. I'd be like just going over the same sentence over and over and over again.
Right.
And I remember Adam Vaughan, who's now a member of parliament. Adam Vaughan taught me something too. He probably doesn't know this. Maybe I'll send him the link to this, right? Or maybe somebody will. I walked out of the voiceover booth and Adam Vaughan was standing there because he was a reporter at the time covering City Hall. And he looks at me and he goes, "Mohammed, that's not what you sound like in real life." And then he went in and he just did it the way he sounds like in real life. Like if you talk to him outside of the voiceover booth and inside, it was the same voice. And that's when I learned, right, that like I needed to stop trying to be that TV guy and just be myself. Mm-hmm. So I think they would say I was quiet. I think they would say that I had a lot of growing to do, and they'd be right. And I still do. I'm still quiet, and I still have a lot of growing to do.
Mm-hmm. You said earlier that having the name Mohammed, going into an industry with media, that it's almost like the odds are against you just because the notion of what people like. First of all, isn't Mohammed one of the most popular names in the world?
So it's the most common name in the world.
Most common name. Yeah.
It's probably also the most misspelled because there's like a zillion different ways to spell it, right?
Yes.
M-O-M-U.
Yeah, that's
two
right.
M's,
Mohammed,
one M.
Muhammad.
And we're not even talking the African versions, right? African versions are like Mamadou and Mamdou and like that's all over the place, right? But yeah, it's not easy.
Well, I say that because I was telling you this when we're doing interviews, we're getting a lot of different cultures and names and all that. And I find that a lot of times, like I told you this, they change their names in their resume because in their mind, if I actually put my given name, it might take me off from this opportunity. And that to me is huge. Like it's an issue, man. That's an issue. Like it definitely puts you in a disadvantage for you to come into that. And it's probably more. I mean, you obviously did work in the U.S. obviously with the different stations. That probably is on an even different level there. I mean,
it is. Yeah, it is. I'm not going to deny it. It's hard, right? But I made a choice when I went into this industry. And I could say this as advice to people that are listening or watching. If there's anybody out there named Muhammad or Ali or Fatima or any other Muslim name, Yasin, Kumail, don't let other people tell you who you should be. Don't let other people tell you that you're not good enough because your name is something they can't pronounce. If they can't pronounce it, that's their problem. It's not yours. Names have meaning, especially in the Islamic tradition. Every name in the Islamic tradition means something. Somebody's named Rahim. It means the most merciful. Somebody is named Kareem. It means the most generous. Look at the NBA. All these Muslim players in the NBA, right? Their names mean something. Your name is more than just a bunch of words on a piece of paper. Your name is supposed to reflect something that you aspire to be. So Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, if you ask him, what's your name? He'll say, Kareem means the most generous. And that's something he tries to be. So for me, my name is Muhammad. That's somebody that I aspire to be. I'm not saying that I'm anywhere on that level, but it's something that I aspire to be. And if I aspire to be Muhammad, how can I be ashamed of that? How can you be ashamed of being named after somebody that we believe was one of the greatest people in history?
Right.
So my advice to people that are listening right now, especially the people that are young and they feel like they can't make it because they're hustling, you're going to face discrimination. You're going to face people who are going to reject you. You're going to face people who are going to have opinions about you before you even meet them. In my industry, when do you ever see somebody named Muhammad on television? It's usually because they did something wrong. Right? It's like, oh, we went to this mosque and we interviewed Muhammad because, this is a hotbed of terrorism or whatever.
Right.
You know what, man? Be proud of who you are.
Amazing advice.
Be proud of who you are. And if people don't accept you, keep your head down, keep doing your thing, and one day they're going to come and respect you. You don't have to ask anybody to respect you. Respect is something you deserve, regardless of what your name is. And for me, I had a lot of chances to change my name in this industry. People even told me, people were like, yo, if you want to work here, they'll hire you because your work is great, but you just got to change your name. And
wow, flat out. Yeah.
I had senior people, some of the most senior people in the industry in the US say, we want to make you a correspondent and we'll base you in LA or Miami, but would you consider changing your name?
Contingent on that.
Yeah, and it's diplomatic the way they bring it up because it becomes an HR issue or whatever, right? So it's very diplomatic, but you can tell where they're going with it. And I hope I never become that person that says, yeah, you can call me Mo. Even when people try to call me Mo, I'll correct them. I'll say, no, it's Muhammad.
Yeah.
And I can do that, right? Because in Islam, we have a belief that there's something after this life. And I get emotional when I think about this, right? But when I die, if I meet the real Muhammad, and maybe I will, maybe I won't, I don't know. If I meet him, I'm going to say, look, I made a lot of mistakes, but I kept your name. And I took that on me, and I knew it was hard, but I kept it because of you. And maybe he'll say, I'm proud of you.
That's awesome, man.
What's amazing about that is that identity, owning that identity, no matter who you are. Like you can't.
It's hard though, right?
It is hard. You can't make yourself anything other than what you are. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
I do this with my kids. We make up stories, and I've made up like little stories about the frog who didn't want to be a frog. Okay, and
Yeah.
all his friends were geese, and he tried to act like them and look like them, and then at some point a geese said, "Hey, you're not one of us."
Yeah.
Okay, you know, and from when they were young, just introducing that element of indifference.
Yeah.
And that it's something that's very real. There's no way, like, I mean, it's 2019. There's no way to just say, "Oh yeah, we're all friends," because sometimes it's not that simple.
Yeah, but you know what though, right? It's like I think Toronto really helps.
Yes.
You grow up in a city like this, and man, like my friends were all different colors and all different backgrounds.
Why do you think it helps? Look, you
Because
you don't know what
we take it for granted.
Yeah.
Like I'll travel to other cities in Europe or especially in the U.S. and I'll be walking around like I'm the only brown guy in this shopping mall, and that's weird for us, right?
Yes.
That would never happen in Toronto.
No.
Like you walk into like Eaton Center or like Scarborough Town Center,
Yeah.
you're gonna see
Everything.
and you're gonna hear at least 10 languages while you're there.
Yes.
Right.
But the things for us, that's normal.
Yeah.
Like we don't know anything else
Yeah.
because that's just our upbringing, right?
Right.
That's normal.
If I'm ever asked, like, tell me about Toronto if I'm traveling, and I've never left North America, so for me, I always say there's always a 7-Eleven close. Okay. Whenever I describe Toronto, I say anywhere you go, it's like a United Nations meeting. Doesn't matter if it's the bus, you're in line at the coffee shop. Like you, so even if you wanted to take a stance, like, you know, I'm not gonna, I'm just gonna tolerate you, or I'm gonna like hate you, or purposely hate a certain culture or the way someone looks. You can't do it for long, because at
Right.
some point,
Yeah, that's right.
when you go to that banker and you need that loan, it's gonna
That's
be
right.
that nationality.
That's right.
And then all of a sudden, you're trying to put on your TV voice to win favor.
Yeah.
Right. And then, you know, and there's just we're people and we have needs. There's no way to live this life as an island. You need other people in order
Yeah.
to survive, in order to thrive. So at some point, you will need to break that ice with that person.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's if you know, I want to get your take on that. We don't know what we don't know. I think we take it for granted. I feel so blessed that I grew up in this city.
Yeah.
I'm multicultural. My mom's Polish. My dad's Filipino. Culture kind of canceled out for me. I grew up around Italians and Jamaicans. So
That's everybody. though,
That's
man.
everybody.
That's
Exactly.
everybody in
You hear
Toronto.
Russell Peters say that all the time. He's just like, you know, and he got to analyze and pick, okay, what's cool, what's not cool about culture. We get to kind of like, it's almost like a buffet. We can kind of choose what we want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think culture is also in one sense important because it's part of who you are, right? And I think if everybody just winds up that, and that's what makes Canada so great, right? It's like be who you are, be your culture, don't give it up, right? Like if you speak another language, speak it.
Yeah, keep it intact.
Keep it, right. If you grew up eating a certain type of food, man, eat it. Right? Like you don't have to give that up to
Right.
be Canadian. You don't have to
Yes.
give that up to be anything else, right?
Yeah.
It's like that's part of it. And I think I've traveled around the world. I've been to some great cities, and Toronto's the best. Like I'm a bit biased when I say this, right?
Right.
Like there are great cities. Like London's a great city. New York. Every city has its own energy. But in terms of like when I sit back and I'm like, where would I want to raise my kids? It's Toronto.
Yeah, amazing.
That's awesome.
I'll vacation anywhere, right? I'll go spend 6
Yeah.
months in like Barcelona or wherever, right? But I want to raise my kids in Toronto because I think it's the best place for people to know who they are.
Amazing. Anyone who I know who's traveled extensively, they always say as much as they were longing to be in that part of the world, very quickly they cannot ignore it. They're in their hotel room and they say, man, I miss Toronto.
Yeah, I mean, I don't miss the winters.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, like
of course.
like
Especially this one.
yeah, this one was bad, but also like you don't realize it until you go somewhere warm. Our winters do suck.
Yeah, they do.
They suck.
They really do.
Yeah. But you know, it's a small price to pay for everything else that the city offers.
Yeah,
For
it's
sure.
true. I mean, look, I think we're really simple at the core. I always look at like little kids. Life's simple, but it's also beautiful. You know, it's just about, you know, playing and being accepted and those. And I think when we grow up, it's still that simple. We still just want a sense of belonging. It doesn't matter where you are. Guys front like, I don't need anybody. I make my own money. I make my own decisions. I'm an entrepreneur. But you still, when you walk in a room, you want people to warm up to you and be
Yeah.
like, hey, how you doing? You know.
And that's how I think a lot of people here live their lives, right? Like we hold doors open for other people.
Right.
You go to a lot of places they don't, but that's like common. And for us, it's weird. Like, bro, you did
Right.
it would have taken you an extra half second to hold that door open, but you
Right.
don't, right? But here we do.
I never thought about that. Yeah.
Different world, man.
Yeah.
Different
Like
world.
you all, I mean, we all hold doors open for people.
Yeah.
It's normal.
Absolutely.
We'll even hold the subway door open for people.
Yes.
Other people will stand there and watch while that door closes
Yeah.
on you, and they won't even change their facial look. They're just
Yeah.
standing there, look at this, and be like,
Yeah, that blows my mind. That happened to me today, actually.
You're on your own.
Did it?
Sucker.
Yeah, I was walking to the elevator, and the woman's there looking at me, full eye contact, and I'm walking to the elevator, and she lets the door close, and I'm thinking, really?
that's harsh.
You're
man.
walking
Yeah.
up to it.
I'm walking up to the elevator, and she's staring like
In
direct
fairness,
eye contact.
in fairness, though, you are a pretty scary guy.
Yeah. Especially.
Yeah, that's what it probably is. Seriously, it could
You know,
be.
we've all learned from the '80s not to trust guys with jean jackets.
Oh man, the comebacks come. Okay, I'm gonna just deflect right now, very quick, and I want to dive right back. So, I want to talk about how you ended up going from doing journalism here in a safe city
Where we open doors for each other.
where we open doors for each other by people that could have jean jackets on, right down to now you're heading into like literally an opportunity where you're gonna be in a war zone.
Yeah, so I was lucky that I got chances when I was young, and I worked really hard, and then eventually I worked up to CBC, and CBC has rebranded itself a couple of times, right? But when I was there, they rebranded themselves, and they rebranded the National, and they named they wanted to name 10, they call them personalities that were. It's so funny because CBC was just on the screen.
Oh, is
mind
it?
you, but yeah,
Yeah.
they
That's Jerry
they,
working his magic.
yeah. So they named 10 personalities, and they made me one of them.
Oh, nice.
And I was still young, right? And it was a challenge at the CBC because if you're young and ambitious, there are always people ahead of you in line.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was 30, to be honest. So it was still kind of relatively young, right? To be named to the national newscast as one of their guys. And for reasons beyond my control, it didn't work. And it was hard for me because I did everything on my end to make it work, but there were other forces at work that didn't want it to happen. And so I could have done what a lot of people do is mentally I could have just checked out and said, I'm just coming in for a paycheck and I'm going to do my job and I'm going to go home. And I think there are a lot of people at the CBC that are like that because there's a pension. It's a good income, right? I can't do that. I can't just make that. My wife tells me all the time, right? She's like, oh, if you took this job offer, you won't be happy because you need to keep growing and they're not going to give you a place to grow. And I'm like, yeah, but I'd be making money. And she goes, yeah, you'll be happy for 6 months. And then you want to just keep growing, right? So I put my head down and I was like, I'm just going to focus on my craft. I'm not going to focus on the show. I'm not going to focus on the company. I'm just going to focus on that 1-2 minute story that I do every day and make the best that I can be. And I did. And something just clicked one summer where I just started getting a lot of interest from the US networks. So CNN was interested. NBC flew me down in New York City. They were interested. We met. ABC met. ABC brought me in. And do you guys know who Peter Jennings was? So Peter Jennings was a famous news anchor, right?
Absolutely.
And he was Canadian.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that either. Yeah.
Yeah, he was Canadian.
Okay.
And so he had passed away, but they had kind of kept his office the way that it was. And they sat me down. And they're like in the office, and they sat me down and they're like, look, we have a lot of track record with hiring Canadians. And Peter Jennings is kind of, what do you call it? Like his spirit is still very much a part of what we do. And we'd love to have you on board. And the crazy thing was, so the president of ABC at the time was a man named Ben Sherwood, probably the best boss I've ever had. He would send feedback to everybody, but in a positive way. And that's a skill, right? To be able to help people grow by making them feel like you're on their side.
Yes.
And so when he saw my work, he turned to the vice president and he said, what are you waiting for? Because the vice president showed him the work saying, what do you think about him? Should we bring him on board? He turned to her and he said, what are you waiting for? And they brought me in and they talked and they asked me, they said, where would you want to work? Most people in the industry want to work in like London, New York, maybe LA, or like Hong Kong, one of those big cities.
Yeah.
I didn't, because I was like, if I go to one of those places, I'm going to be the most junior guy. I'm not going to get good at story assignments. So I suggested 3 places. I said, can you put me in either, I didn't say, can you put me, but I said, I would love to be based in Delhi, in India, somewhere in Pakistan, or Dubai. Dubai, not because it's like news doesn't happen there, but it's a good place to fly out to other.
Yeah,
places.
absolutely.
And as it happened, they had a position in Pakistan. They're like, well, we have a bureau there and we need somebody there. Would you be interested? And I was like, yeah. And I packed my bags and I flew out. I'd never been there before.
Everybody, whole family went down?
No, I mean, yeah, I went there first to find a place to live and all this stuff. But yeah, we took everybody. We took the whole family.
It's amazing.
It was a great experience.
Amazing to be offered. Where would you like to go? And
yeah, I think it was more that they really like my work. But also I think it was just like, what's his mindset? Right? Like, I love being on the road and I love traveling and going to new places, and I wouldn't do that if I was in New York. I mean, I want to be in New York now.
Right.
New York is kind of my goal now.
Right.
Just because the climate in the U.S. would be perfect, I think, for me to be based in Washington or New York or Miami or something.
yes.
Because I've had a lot of fun overseas.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was like, yeah, let's go on an adventure. And, every time something doesn't work out in life, they say another door opens. So when the whole CBC thing didn't work out and it wasn't anything that I had done, I was down, right? I was like, man, life sucks. And then ABC's like, hey, do you want to come and be part of our network? And like, they had millions of viewers, and it was just such a great thing that happened. And that's really what kickstarted everything, right?
Was the conversation of hostile environments there right from the top, right from the beginning? Did you know that?
Because part of the deal was that they wanted me to cover Afghanistan also. Right? So if you're going to Afghanistan, it's a war zone and there's certain risks involved. And it's only a 1 hour flight from where I was in Pakistan to Afghanistan. So at one point I was actually living in Afghanistan.
Okay.
Wow.
We had like a house there, and like we had a whole setup, and I would spend months at a time there, and then I'd go back to Pakistan, and then something would happen. I'd spend another month in Afghanistan. Like I was just going back and forth.
Can you give me an idea what life's like there? Look, I've had a lot of neighbors who are from Afghanistan, and I love their rice, and raisins.
First of all, Afghan food is very underrated.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It took off in
It's so
Toronto,
good.
right? Because there's a lot of like Afghan places now. But
Yeah.
somebody told me that Afghans only make two things, but they make them fantastic.
You're amazing.
What are those two things?
Meat and bread.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Afghan meat is like on another level.
It is.
Everything
Delicious.
is grilled,
Yeah.
right?
It
It's
is.
really good. And Afghan bread. And so, in Kabul at the time, there's like a whole expat community of people who live in compounds and they don't really go out. And there's a few restaurants that they're allowed to go to. Like if you work for the UN or some agency, you have a list of places you're allowed to go to because they've been cleared by security. And they serve good food. But look at me, right? So I can blend in anywhere in Afghanistan. So I would go to the real places to go get food, right? And you're like eating off the street and stuff. And it's just incredible. Really friendly people. You get the feeling that they're just tired. They're just tired. They've been through 30 years, man. Maybe more than 30 years, right? Almost 40 years now of just war.
Yeah.
And people are just tired. They just want it to stop.
Yeah. Everyday people, you can see it on them.
Yeah.
What's the energy like? You know how every city kind of has a vibe.
Yeah,
You know,
it's a weird vibe there because everything happens behind walls. So like you know how when you're driving on the 401 and there's the sound barriers, right? Now imagine if those were concrete barriers. And you see them in some places, they're concrete, right? Now imagine those concrete barriers were around every house. Right? Or every building. That's what Kabul is like.
Really?
That the main buildings all have concrete blast
Why?
walls. Because people blow stuff up.
So it's
goodness.
pure protection.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Like any government building, any like major building that you go to will have blast walls.
How high
a lot
are
of
these
embassies
walls?
have.
How high are these walls?
You can't see past them. Like
Oh my
at
goodness.
least 10 feet, maybe 20.
We really take advantage.
That's bizarre. Can't even imagine
Yeah,
that.
how we have our life here. I mean, in a first world country,
Take it for granted.
we really take it for granted, man.
Yeah.
Really take it for granted.
Yeah, we have like some construction on the sidewalk, and it obstructs our, getting into the store to get that 20% off, and we're livid.
Yeah,
You know?
I've been in situations where like bombs have gone off, right? And you feel it. I was in Istanbul when there was a car bomb that went off. And it was basically a kilometer away from us, and you feel it.
Wow.
I've been in a bunch of situations where
Well,
bombs
I was
have gone
gonna
off,
I was gonna ask
feel
you,
it.
have you had close to near death experiences?
Yeah, three.
Three, eh?
Yeah, three.
Are you able to share one of them, or?
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a sip of water before I do
Yeah.
this.
I don't know if your viewers were expecting something this kind of this deep. No, one was in Ukraine one was in Afghanistan and one was in Egypt. Egypt was interesting because our car was surrounded by armed kind of thugs, like
during the revolution.
It was during the reversal of the revolution. So the revolution happened, and then a year later, the military took control again.
Mm-hmm.
And when the military took control, it was bad because there were people protesting, right? Thousands and thousands of people protesting on the street, and the military just at one point they were just started shooting people, like point blank. They had snipers on the roof.
Wow!
And I was there with my own eyes, where you'd be standing
at random.
At random. I mean, I don't know if they were planning it, but these weren't like targets. These were just ordinary people. And I was standing in the square. It was called Raba Adawiya, and there'd be a mother with a child standing, 40 feet away from you. You'd turn and you'd look back and she'd be on the ground. And it's not like anybody was close by, so you're looking around and you're like, where's it coming from?
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, there's people in that building.
Wow.
Oh, there's people in that building. Yeah, it was rough. But we were we had just filed our story and we had to make it to another location, and all the streets were kind of closed and nobody was driving around. So we found just an ordinary guy, and we're like, can you take us back to our hotel where we are? And he goes, you guys are nuts. I'm not taking you there. It took like 20 minutes to find a driver who was crazy enough to take us, right? And we just were like, we'll give you $300. It's just a lot of money, right? Just take us to the hotel. And he took us, and then there are a lot of like when you're in a war zone or you're in a city where there's no more authority, these checkpoints just pop up.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, it comes down to like, this is your neighborhood, it's your turf, you're protecting your turf. You don't want those guys coming into your neighborhood, so you're setting up your own checkpoint.
Yeah.
It's like if you grew up in, I don't know, a part of Scarborough, like you grew up in Malvern, you don't want the guys from Etobicoke coming down to Malvern because they're going to shoot people up. Mm-hmm. So you set up your own checkpoint, right? Mm-hmm. And you know the people that live in Malvern. So you'll pass through, oh, that's Auntie so-and-so, this is my cousin Frank,
I heard these checkpoints worldwide. You just never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and they tell you in the training that the checkpoints are some of the most dangerous places.
Yes.
Because, like, you're in their hands.
Yeah, that's where decisions are made.
That's where decisions are made, right? Like, do they want to detain you? Do they want to send you to the boss?
What do they tell you? What's some general training if you come across a random checkpoint? You don't know if it's civilians. You don't know if...
Yeah, so there's a few things. They tell you, number one, make sure you have a really good driver, because your driver is your number one vulnerability in any war zone, but they're also your best friend, because your driver knows... They know what's going on in the neighborhoods, right? Even now, you talk to a taxi driver, hey, man, can I go here? No, because Broadview Station's closed. Like, they know, right?
Yes.
So have a good driver, but also try to figure things out ahead of time so that you don't have to go through a checkpoint that's unnecessary, and stay calm. Just stay calm, answer the questions. In Egypt, I had a benefit, right? So we went through this checkpoint, and they were going to let us through, and then the leader of this gang or militia, whatever you call it, comes to the door, looks inside, and he goes, I want these guys out. They're spies.
To you guys.
Yeah. And so it was me, Nasser, who was a longtime producer with ABC, and two guys in the front that we didn't know that were just driving. And so Nasser speaks fluent Arabic. So Nasser basically tells them, no, we're nobodies. We're just visiting from Jordan.
You won't even say where you're from.
If we had told them we're with an American network and we're journalists,
that's it. Whoa.
Like we would have been picked up and thrown in some place, and who knows what would have happened.
It's funny, I didn't even think about that.
And the worst part was because there was no law at the time. Law had kind of been suspended, so they might not even
law has
put us
been
in
suspended. Oh my goodness!
Right? Like we would have got roughed up for sure. At the very least, we would have got roughed up. And so Nasser's explaining to them in Arabic. He goes, no, we're just visiting from Jordan. We're going back to our hotel. It's a really nice hotel. We just came for a few days. We have nothing to do with all this political stuff. We just want to go home. And I had my camera bag with all our footage that we had just shot of the main protest where people were getting shot.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, man, if they get a hold of this camera and they see this footage, it's a problem. And so they were going to let us through. And then the head of the group, the head of the militia comes and he goes, I want these guys out of the car. They're spies. And there are two things that saved me that day. And bear in mind that at this time, our car is surrounded now by like 15 guys with machetes and shotguns and all this stuff, right? There are two things that saved us. Number one is the way that I look. If I was a white American reporter, we wouldn't have even got to that stage. They would have just pulled me out right from the beginning.
Right.
But I look like I could fit in Egypt. I'm Muslim. I can speak Arabic, so I can't speak it well, but I can say enough that they don't have to be suspicious of me. So that was the number one. That the way that I looked, my being a brown guy named Mohammed saved my life.
Yeah, there, see?
Right? And that's happened more than once.
Interesting.
And that's karma for you, right?
Yeah, it's so funny. Causes problems in one way.
Yeah, but it saves your life. Which would you rather have, right? I'll take saving my life any day. And the second thing was, I'd locked my door. So they said, he goes, I want them out of the car. They're spies. And they came to open the door from the outside, and they couldn't because it was locked. And that was the training they give you, is that, like, you're driving around here, you don't always lock your doors when you're driving, right? But they're like, when you go there, make sure your door is locked. Because if your door is locked, they can't get in.
Right.
Right? And, like, it buys you a bit of time. So he went and the door was locked.
And then now the front guy starts speaking and it just throws him off.
And then the front guy starts speaking. And then we were lucky because there was another car that came behind us in the checkpoint. Jeez. So the mob kind of moved to the next car.
Yes.
And they kind of just left us alone, right? And it was just such a fluid situation.
And they have their guns. There are guns everywhere. You can see, like, this is...
Oh, yeah. The guns are pointed at you, right?
Oh, my God.
Because it's not here. These aren't police, right?
Yeah.
A police officer's not going to withdraw his firearm unless he knows there's a threat.
Right.
To these guys, they're just... They walk around with guns, right? Like, these kind of people. And the car came behind us, and so we turned to the driver, and we're like, just drive.
Yeah.
Just go. And so he goes... He didn't want to, but he did. He takes us and he drops us about maybe 400 meters away, 400 meters away. But we're still in this neighborhood that's all these bad guys that just wanted to stop us, right? And he goes, get the hell out of my car.
Mm.
And we understood, right?
Right.
We're like, we totally understood. So now we're in a neighborhood.
With no driver.
Walking on streets that are deserted except for militia guys with firearms. And we needed to walk about 2 kilometers to get to our hotel.
Wow.
Oh, man.
And so I was kind of shaken up, right? Because...
what time of day is it?
Daytime, like 2, 3.
Do you ever move in the night or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it depends. Depends where you are.
So you got a couple of hours to get...
Yeah.
Before
like, we basically, like, I think all the news organizations had a rule that you don't go out at night. So we had to make it back to the hotel and stuff. And Nasser, who is so calm because he's been in so many of these experiences before, he goes, Mohammed, stop looking so nervous. Just talk to me about Toronto. Talk to me about your home. Talk to me about this.
So he's kind of like
he's loosening
neutralizing you.
He's neutralizing because he could tell, right, that if you're nervous, people pick up on it right on the street, and they'll know that you don't belong there.
Yeah.
So he's like, just wave your hands and smile and laugh, and so I'm like smiling and laughing, and we're talking, and my phone keeps ringing, because it's the newsroom saying, when are you guys going to get to the hotel? We need you to go live in 5 minutes. And I can't even answer because I'm going to speak English when I answer, right?
Right.
And I didn't want to do that. So finally, I kept, when you answer the phone and then you hang up?
Yeah.
So I kept doing that, and they wouldn't stop calling me.
Right.
And so finally, I pick up the phone, and I said, I'm really sorry. We're walking through a neighborhood where we're not safe. I'll call you when I can. Bang, and I hung up.
Okay. You think they get the clue, you know?
No, man. When you need to go live for Good Morning America, there's no clue. It's like they need you, they need you, right?
Right.
And then it was weird. And then you go back to your hotel, and there's like a swimming pool, and there's like a gym, and like
bizarre.
fancy food.
It's like you just crossed the world. Yeah.
It's weird, yeah. It's a weird lifestyle.
And you did this over and over again for how many years? 3?
No, more. 6, 7, something like that.
Can I ask you?
All in.
Jeez, man.
Look, there's.
And I'm okay in those situations now. Like you learn, right? You learn how to not. I'm not a crazy guy. I don't rush into places that are just unnecessary. But sometimes you do need to tell the story because people need to see it. Mm-hmm. So you just you calculate. But you guys know this in security, right? Mm-hmm. You'll do like a risk assessment. You'll go in and you'll say, okay, what are the ground rules? What rules can we not break? You have briefings with your team, and you're like, here's what we're doing, and then you go there and you stay calm. And as long as you kind of keep your wits, most of the time you'll be okay. And then there's things that happen that you can't control, just random stuff, but that could happen anywhere.
I want to ask you, why? I love that statement. People need to hear this story.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's something there where, you know, you're a journalist at the core, you
Yeah.
know, and that means everything about integrity. With that, I know for sure you're not thinking about your own safety. You're thinking about the objective. There's an objective.
I'm thinking about my own safety.
Or yeah, at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you have to, right? But you also you need to tell the story. Like people need to see what's going on.
So again, I guess so twofold. I mean, obviously you're not being negligent. You're doing your due diligence, but people need to see. I want to ask you, why? Why do you believe that people at home, the soccer mom or the guy who wants to put Netflix on, you know,
Yeah.
to binge watch his, you know, his next series, why do they need to hear what's happening
do you
in
want to know
different parts of the world?
Do you want to know the real answer?
Yeah.
I think we as human beings need to see our own darkness. It sounds really morbid when you hear that. Like, why do we need to see our own darkness? Like, we spend billions of dollars hiding our darkness. We spend billions of dollars building up fake identities and fake lives and social media and like fake profiles and this and that. Everything that we see is designed on not showing who we really are. I think human beings are capable of incredible things. I've seen things that are just mind-blowing. Like I've seen people do things that are changing the world, and they've done it with nothing. And those are inspiring, and we need to tell those stories. Especially now, we need to tell those stories more than all the bad stuff. But we also need to know the depths of evil that we're capable of. In so many places, Iraq is a good example, right? You had neighbors living side by side for generations. And they were Sunni or Shia or Yazidi or whatever. Like, nobody really cared. But all it takes is one little spark. And suddenly, oh, fine, we've been neighbors for 40 years, but we're us and you're you. It's no longer us together. It's them versus us. And then they just start killing each other. Right? So I think we need to see as human beings, look, don't let yourself fall into a false sense of security and thinking that can't happen to you.
Yes.
Because it can.
Yeah.
Right? And even like we're all happy living here in Western countries and cities. Like we have generally safe lives and like everybody gets along, but don't think that stuff can't happen to you. And even on a more basic level, it has to do with the human soul. The soul is capable of great things and it's capable of horrible things. Mm-hmm. And I don't care how good you are, your soul is still capable of doing those things, right? Like if you had a choice and you thought somebody was coming to kill you, you would get a gun and kill them first. If you were convinced that somebody was about to kill you, what would you do?
Yeah. They would
What would you
they
do?
would persistently
Right.
come until they achieve their goal.
And the
So what do you-
rules no longer apply,
Yeah.
Right.
right? So I just think that we as human beings need to see this. Not so much for the news value because there's so much news out there anyway, but my hope is that sometimes people might watch this stuff and realize something about themselves, right? And say, okay, if I'm capable of that, let me acknowledge that and let me see what I can do to make myself a better person.
Yeah.
Right.
To grow away from that.
Or to make sure that nobody has to make that decision,
Yeah.
right? And I think there's value in that. And to me, that's the spirit of journalism, which is teaching us about ourselves.
Right.
Not about some people over there. It's actually not. Like I might be in Egypt or I might be in Indonesia, wherever. But what's happening there is the story of the human soul. And
Yes.
that could happen anywhere.
Yeah.
That's honestly like amazing.
That's amazing.
to think of it like that. The other thing is just what you're doing like right now in the sense of like even your message. I'll give you an example. When we started the concept of standing in the six, it was about what do you stand for, right? That message of goodness, you know what I mean? And one of the things that I notice that you do on Twitter is that, you know, when there's a lot of negativity in the world, which there's a lot of it every single day,
Yeah.
you find the positives in that.
Yeah.
Because the news has always done an excellent job of just feeding us this negativity every single day. Oh,
Yeah.
we're going to get 40 inches of snow and this and that and that.
Yeah.
And then you might come across and say, but we're going to get it all cleared up and it'll be nice and safe. And you always bring that positive, which I really like. Tell me a little bit about that.
I'll give you an example, right? So I was driving here and there was an issue at Toronto's Pearson Airport yesterday where there was a fire or something. There were a bunch of planes that were delayed,
Yes,
right?
that's right.
So on the way here, I was listening to the radio and they ran a soundbite of a guy that they interviewed and they're like, what was it like? And he goes, man, I was stuck on my plane for 3 hours, but I didn't mind because I don't have free time. I watched a movie. They had wine, they had food, and he loved it, right? He was like, I got 3 hours just chilling, watch a movie.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
And then you know, and then the next half hour, 1 hour, they did the story again, and they used a different sound clip, right? Where the guy was like, man, they put us in these hotels, and then in the morning, there were buses and buses of people crammed to get back to the airport to catch their flight. And he goes, it was insane. And guess which one of those clips they kept running over and over again?
That one,
right?
Yeah.
They didn't run the clip of the guy who was fine.
Right.
Now, fine. There were a lot of people that were upset and pissed off because they missed their flights, but there were also guys who were just chilling, right?
Yeah.
But those guys will never have their stories told.
Right.
Right? Even though that's part of reality. So a while ago, I said, you know what? I've been covering the world's biggest problems.
Right.
Biggest, right? Like terror attacks, plane crashes, planes disappear, massive world events. I've spent so much of my career covering the world's biggest problems. What if I spent time trying to solve those problems instead?
Mm-hmm.
And I woke up one morning and I said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to make the world better. It's naive, right? How's this guy going to make the world better? Well, I thought so too, and I didn't know how it would turn out. And so I said, I can't control other stuff in my life, but I can control my own platforms. I can control my Twitter and my Facebook and Insta and all that stuff. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to use my own voice to share stories of people that are making the world better. And when I started, I was reaching around 200,000 people a month. In terms of total impressions, around 200,000 a month. I'm now reaching about 4.1 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And this is just the beginning. Like, wait until you see what's next. Because there's a demand for this and nobody's doing it. So like, you know, with the shooting in New Zealand, right?
Yep.
What a horrible story. And something that affected me kind of really deeply and personally.
For sure.
I think a lot of Muslims, ordinary Muslims around the world were hit deeply by that. And I said, everybody's going to focus on this guy who went in and shot these people up. How did he become radicalized and what weapons did he use and stuff? That's all just noise. And so I tweeted out about one of the heroes, right? He was a dad whose son had just been shot in the mosque and people around him were lying on the ground bleeding and dying. And what does he do? He rushes the gunman with his bare hands. Those are the types of stories.
I never heard that story.
Exactly, right? And you wouldn't hear it on the news, but those are the types of stories that we should be telling. Because whenever something bad happens, you need to counter it with good.
Yeah.
You can't just look at bad all the time. There's something in your soul that needs more. It's like if you just fed yourself fast food every day, right? You're going to be craving a salad.
Right.
You're going to crave something healthy because your body's going to reject it. Your body's going to say, no, we can't have this. And I think what we're seeing right now is we're on the cusp of something special where people are about to say no. People are about to say, no, I'm tired of you feeding me all this negativity.
Yes, exactly.
I'm tired of turning on the TV and seeing Trump all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm not saying it's useful. It's not useful. It's useful.
Right.
But
it's
you need to see everything.
It's a force-fed
It's too
diet.
much.
Though. It's a
force-fed
force-fed
diet,
It's too
right?
much.
And now here's the thing, right? If you have a force-fed diet and you want to eat healthy, it's as simple as saying, I'm just going to start eating healthy.
Right.
Right? So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to use my voice and eventually you're going to build something that's going to be a powerful alternative. And it's based on a bet. And the bet is that goodness is better than negativity. Goodness is, or evil, whatever you call it, right? That goodness is better than badness.
Right.
And I think that's true. That's how I was raised. That's probably how most people were raised, that good is better than evil.
Right.
And I'm going to prove it.
Have you heard that saying, darkness only exists because of an absence of light?
Yep.
Okay. There's nowhere in the world you can dial darkness up. You can't do it. You can't. It is directly a result on if there's enough light.
That's right.
Or adequate light. That's all.
You know, I think about this a lot with what happened in New Zealand, right? You have people who are, and I spent time with the KKK in South Carolina a couple of years ago, right? And like you see, they invited me to a cross lighting ceremony.
Oh my!
And I was like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna light me up on that cross, aren't you? Right?
Oh my goodness.
And I said no, but you could see it in them, right? Like I understand where that hatred comes from, and I understand where it is. Now, what if you took somebody who is from the alt-right, radicalized Usually these guys are like loner kind of white guys who just believe in like their race and all this stuff. What if you took one of them and you said, okay, stop watching Fox News for a little bit, and what if you showed them good things that were happening in their community or good things that non-white people were doing, right? So this guy who went into this mosque in New Zealand, right? What if he had seen good things that people in that mosque were doing for the rest of New Zealand? Good things that those people who look nothing like him were doing for people that look just like him.
Right.
Yes.
Right? So he'd be like, well, I hate those guys, but damn, they're feeding my people.
Yeah.
Right? Or those guys are taking our jobs, but they just hired 10 people that got laid off from my factory. If he had seen that, he might not agree with them, but at least he might not shoot them.
Yeah. It humanizes.
It humanizes them, right? Like nobody expects people to agree with everybody, but just don't kill them.
Yeah.
Right? And I think if there was a way to show people like this shooter a more balanced picture, right? Like you said, right? Take away that darkness and just give them a little bit.
Yeah.
So they know that, okay, the light is out there somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? That's all you need.
Yeah.
And the good thing about goodness is, let me ask you guys, when was the last time you shared a story or an article that made you feel like crap? You ever read something about 100 people lost their lives and like, we don't share that shit because it's not wired in us. We don't want to make other people feel bad. No, we don't share that. But when was the last time you shared something that made you feel good?
Right. All the time.
Yeah, all the time.
All the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just think that like there's so much potential there.
There absolutely
to make the world better.
It's interesting when you say when you look at equate it that way. That's what's natural. What's natural.
That's right.
You receive, you enjoy, even if it's like a cookie, you want to share it.
Yeah.
You have a bad taste, you come across a bad article, you don't inherently think I'm going to pass this on for other people to get this cloud and to feel this way and to I think it's also just like it's a very Canadian thing too, right? If you have something, you share it. And I think that's why this country is so open to immigration too, right? Because we kind of feel like we're privileged and there's no reason why we can't share it.
Right.
And I think, okay, I know there's politics behind it and I don't want to sort of state opinions, but there's a lot of people out there that would say, yeah, you know what? Come on into my neighborhood. We'll help you get a job. We'll help you do this. And I think if you gave people a choice, there are going to be a minority of people that'll say, no, this is my cookie. You can't have it.
Yes.
Just like kindergarten.
Yeah.
Think, let me ask you this, right? Think back to your kindergarten. Say there were 30 kids in your class. How many of them would have said, this is my cookie, you can't have it, versus who would have said, yeah, you can have some?
Wow. That's a good question, man.
Yeah. I'm trying to think.
I think I would have shared it.
I think the easy answer is maybe it's 50-50.
Yeah.
You know?
My bet is that it's more than 50.
Yeah.
Of sharing?
Of sharing. And even if it's only 50, that's still a lot of people that want something good for other people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But what we're seeing right now is we're force-fed 90%.
Right.
Yes. And that becomes a norm, or at least in belief. Like, that's how it is. Everyone is out for themselves.
I like what you said. I like how you said it's natural, right? Because I think we live in a world and a time where things are not natural.
Yeah.
You know,
they're distorted.
We've lost our way. As a society, we've lost our way. I always think of, I mean, look at that killer, the guy that did the killings in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And like anyone that's done something horrific like that, Hitler, any of these people, I always go back to their childhood. Like right when they're 2-3 years old, when they're supposed to be their most innocent.
Yeah.
And somewhere along the way, they morphed into the person they are today.
Yeah.
And my mind always goes there. What were you like? What happened? What happened for you to come off this path to go here?
Yeah.
And to me, the world needs more of stuff like what you're doing to help them stay on that path. Because somewhere along the line, I mean, I was watching this video the other day, this woman in somewhere in the US, and she was having this interaction with a black male, and she just started in front of her 2 kids, I think were 9 and 10 years old. She just kept on using the N-word over and over again. And I mean, it was actually disturbing quite a few people in the area. But I'm thinking, man, like your kids are hearing this hate coming out of your mouth. Could that be when they switch paths? Because they're taught hate.
Yeah, they're primed.
Or they learn hate. So to me, if more and more...
kids learn what they live, right?
It's true. And my wife actually says this to me. She goes, why are you always watching? And I actually do. I actually watch a bunch of videos. But why are you always watching these fights and this and this and that? And I mean... I know that pulls in the viewer, obviously.
Yeah.
But to me, the other side of the coin is the goodness also gravitates. And I actually lean more on that side because I try to put all these positive things in my life to inspire me every day, to motivate me, to drive me, to do better, to be good.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad you're doing stuff like that.
I'll give you a quick story, right? I don't know how much time we have left, but I'll give you a quick story. So any Muslim that you talk to has been told this story from the time they were young. It's like, I haven't met a single person that hasn't heard this story before. And to be honest, I've never checked the source, historical, whatever, but it's a story you're told when you're young. And I'm sure that every culture has their own version of it. So in Islam, the Prophet Muhammad had a really hard time in the beginning because there were a lot of people that didn't like what he was saying. And there was a woman who lived on his street. And whenever he would walk down the street, she would throw garbage at him. She had garbage in the house. Imagine walking down an alleyway and having garbage thrown on you, right? And you need to walk down that alleyway every day because it's the only way down, right?
Yeah.
Every day she would throw garbage on him, right? And then eventually, as he grew and he gained more followers, he could have done whatever he wanted, right? He could have told his people, he could have told his companions, yo, guard this alleyway. Didn't do anything. One day, the woman became very ill. And she was on a bed and she was really sick. And the door opened and it was the Prophet Muhammad. Now, if you're that woman, you're thinking, this guy's about to take his revenge on me.
Yeah, at my weakest point.
No, and he came and he inquired and he said, I was walking down this alleyway. He said, I was walking down this alleyway and I noticed you didn't throw garbage on me. So I came to check on you to see if you're okay.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I think that for all the people that have hate in the world, for every one person that has hate in the world, we need one person to be like that, right? Who's going to neutralize that hate and say, I don't have time for this. I'm all about something else.
Yeah.
And I care about you. So even this New Zealand guy, right? Like whenever you see people that are filled with hate, you need the opposite. You need somebody who's actually going to go all out to make the world better.
Yeah.
And we talk about like radical people, radical white people, Muslims, whatever. You need radical goodness.
Yeah.
Is
Radical love, I've heard it said.
You need it, right? You need the opposite. And I think that opposite is out there. We just don't see it.
Yeah.
Right.
We just don't see it. And that's where I can help. I can help people see that.
Yeah.
That's
amazing.
awesome. How do people find you, Mohammed? I mean, I know right now you have different platforms, but if people want to tap into this goodness, I want my daily dose of Mohammed.
That's a good title.
Yeah.
I'm on Twitter, man. Just at Mohammed Lila. I'm on Facebook, facebook.com/Mohammed Lila.
And for the many different variations of Mohammed, it's it's Muhammad.
Yeah, and the last name Lila. That's how people can find me on Twitter. I'm on Twitter like a lot, and I find it's a great tool to stay in touch with people. Facebook also, and that's the best way to find me.
Okay.
Yeah,
amazing, man.
Thanks for coming. I know you're pressed for time. We really appreciate that you're here. We hope to keep in touch and just to hear kind of what you're cooking. I know there's some stuff that you have coming out.
Yeah.
Please keep us in the loop.
Well, I know I'd say the same to you guys, man. Like I think you guys are onto something. And I would say anybody in Toronto that wants to know about what's going on and get a pulse on the city and get a pulse on, like you said, the energy, right? I think you guys have this ability to tap into that energy from all sorts of different people, right? Like, I don't know, you probably haven't had other journalists on before.
No,
not yet.
No.
Right? But you've had a lot of really cool people.
Right.
And I think you just tap into something that I think brings people together. And I'm excited to see what's in store for you guys, man. 2 years from now, I'm gonna brag to all my friends that, I was on their podcast when they were just getting started.
And if we want to go to South Carolina and meet up with some of the boys, the KKK boys, we'll give you a call if our reach ever goes.
Well,
there.
y'all have a background in security too, right? So I think that could that could help a little bit.
Yeah, we know how to do it safely.
Yeah, there you go.
I will say this: they were polite.
Yeah, amazing.
They were polite, and I think those guys are. I think when you're searching for meaning in something, you try to find it wherever you can. And I think a lot of what's happening in America and probably in other places around the world is that people are looking for meaning that they feel like they lost or that was taken away from them. Anybody can sympathize with that. You lost your job. Your job gave you meaning in your life, and now it's gone. I can sympathize with that. I'd try to help you if I could, right? And people just try to find meaning in things that are healthy and things that are unhealthy. And I think a lot of those guys just tried to find meaning in something that wasn't healthy or that was too exclusive.
Yeah.
Right?
It's amazing. It's actually, I have a lot of respect for you. A lot of respect. You've been in some of the worst parts of the world. You've seen the worst of people, and you're not sharp to judge still. You're still sympathetic and empathetic. That picture that you said of the classroom, you need those in the class that stay back, because when those in the class start to act up and act out against each other, you need those people that know both sides to say, no, look, that was by accident. He actually just tripped on your foot by accident. He wasn't trying to knock your book off your desk. And like anything, you need those people, because if you don't, if it's literally us and them,
Or you've got two kids that are fighting in kindergarten because they don't like each other because their parents taught them all sorts of hate. One black, one white, one brown, one Chinese, whatever. And they're fighting over the last cookie because there was 29 cookies, but there's 30 kids in the class. Mm-hmm. What we need is the kid in the middle to cut his cookie in half and say, here, you each take half and I'm not going to have any.
Yeah.
That's what you need.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
It's amazing. Amazing picture, man.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love it, man.
I love being here, man. This is
Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, this is awesome.
This is awesome.
Amazing.
Thanks,
Well, once again, your daily dose of Muhammad at Muhammad Lila on Twitter.
After all the seriousness.
That's right. And get ready.
Hey, man.
And
that's
get
life.
ready. That's right.
To me, there's life. There's times you rejoice. There's times you grieve. You got to be able to be both. I could not imagine being numb and just turning myself off and not feeling, not being, just kind of being about my job, 9 to 5, watching my television. It's not an existence I want. Our hope with this show is that people, it just maybe makes them pause for a second.
Yeah. You guys are doing it, man. You're doing it. All sorts of people coming on, and here's my shout out, man. Standing in the Six.
Hey.
Yeah, there you
Tune
go.
in, man. Download on Apple. You guys on Apple Podcasts.
Apple, iTunes, Spotify.
Apple, iTunes, Spotify, whatever device you're on. Standing in the Six, man. Be part of it. Be part of the movement.
You just won yourself a shirt. You just won yourself a Standing in the Six shirt.
Jerry, I think he's competing for you for that voice. He's got that great voice.
That's a solid voice.
Yeah, it is. When you were saying that guy from City TV, what was his name again? Mark
Daly.
Daly had that song. Hey, City TV everywhere. You know what I mean? It's Jerry's right in there. That's one of his idols. I believe.
Man, one day, look, I know you guys have your schedule and stuff. It would be good to just talk about crazy stuff that happened. In the Toronto media scene, man. There are stories at City TV I could tell you that they would never fly now, but just it was.
We're booking for August. So we're good.
We'll do a part 2.
Sounds amazing.
That's awesome.
Thanks, guys. Thanks
Beautiful.
for having me.
Thanks, Mohammed.
Pleasure.
Take care, buddy.
This podcast is brought to you by Executive Protection Lifestyle Canada. Make sure to drop by next week and don't forget to subscribe.